My name is Benjamin de Beau, and I'm very happy to be joined by my colleagues Carmen, Logue, and Tom Dyar, and we'll be presenting you an overview of our analytics portfolio. So it's an analytics buffet. It's kind of a broad buffet, so I hope you didn't have lots of lunch. It's meant to be a kind of kick-off session to orient you for the rest of the conference. So throughout the session, you'll see advertisements for all kinds of other sessions later in the conference. So this is just to give you a little taste of everything that we have on offer in the analytics side. So a launch pad for the rest of the conference. So before we start our tour, I wanted to just, for context, steal a couple of slides and quotes from analysts. So this is a clip from a slide by Ventana Research, is an influential analyst firm, and they have done some research into how customers or how enterprises are starting to use AI. And what is interesting here is that most organizations are not looking at a rip and replace strategy. They're not throwing away what they have and replacing it with AI magic. They're just looking to augment the applications that they're already using. So I think that is very interesting also for application partners like many of you who are delivering their own solutions, that you should not look at this as a threat, but really as an opportunity. So this is also something that aligns with our observations, how people start to adopt analytics, like let's say 10 years ago, also not just replacing what there is, but really look at augmenting what you have. Another term that you've probably heard a lot lately is about composability, is about making it easy to compose your overall solution using components that just work well together and that are well integrated. And just to give you the acronyms there, ABI stands for Analytics and BI, and DSML is for Data Science and Machine Learning. So more and more people are no longer looking at those as kind of standalone tools that you open up in Windows, you click around and you get your result out of it, and then you need to do something with that result. It's more and more becoming an integrated fabric, if you will, of multiple components that work well or are meant to work well together, especially with the rise of Python and scikit-learn and that kind of packages in the data science community is really a great example of how you can see how many of these components work well, are meant to work well together rather than have one sit-down solution that does everything, because that's just not realistic. This is an evolution of how the data market has already been evolving quite a bit, so there's definitely more of that to come. And then the third slide I'm stealing today is this one about generative AI. Don't have to overstate the relevance of it. What is interesting in the context of analytics is that generative AI is making sure that we're not only looking at unstructured data or text as a possible data source, which natural language processing was already helping us with in the past, but that it's really the way how you interact with your data, the way how you initiate your analytics, the way how you consume the results from your analytics. So natural language becoming the mode of conversation, that's sort of the new thing that generative AI enables. So how is InterSystems looking at these trends, and what are we doing to kind of ride the wave and to help you be successful in these trends? So when we look at intelligent applications, augmenting applications has really been something that we've been working on for a long while. You might have heard us talk about some of that in past events. So what we think is important here is that we're making sure that the analytics part is part of your platform. The analytics capabilities and components are part of your platform such that you have an easy time including those into your applications. And also by making them part of the same platform, that we can easily push the processing that is associated with your analytics or data science closer to the data, increasing efficiency, reducing the risk of latency and lag. Composability, obviously very important, and I think if you're familiar with our platform, or you will be at the end of this session, you'll see that things like adaptive analytics, like our machine learning entry points and hooks, are really meant to live in that composable scenario. And if you look at some of our solutions like the Data Fabric Studio or Total View for Asset Management, you'll see that we're taking advantage of that ourselves, leveraging those composable building blocks as part of solutions that we can roll out more quickly. And then on the generative AI side, this is a very fast-moving market, so we focused on what we think is the most important thing first. That's making sure that your data is Gen AI ready, is ready for LLMs to consume. And that's what the vector search capability that we're introducing for is meant to help you with. We'll talk much more about that tomorrow, first in the keynotes, and then in some more detailed sessions, one of which Tom's going to be delivering. So with that, let's take a closer look at the buffet. And because we're living in the world of generative AI, I thought it was just fun to leverage generative AI to generate a couple of pictures to illustrate some of the things that we're doing, to illustrate some of the parts of our buffet. So first, we'll talk about data and how we're helping you on the data side. So getting all the ingredients for the buffet together, preparing them, and then putting them in the pantry, kind of storing them, making them ready for that they're in top shape for when the cooking starts. KPIs is how we're presenting the insights to the end consumers, how we're doing the actual cooking, how does that happen, how do the ingredients finally end up on your plate in a nicely presented way. If you attended, which I hope you did, the keynotes this morning, this is what Dr. Butte was talking about when he was describing the dashboards that they were using at University of California, how their users are consuming those analytics. Inferencing is a look in the kitchen when the cooking is getting a little more exciting than just flipping burgers, when we're talking about the more intriguing, the more complicated recipes. That's what we'll talk about at the inferencing level. And both Dr. Butte and Dr. Lin have been talking about, have shown a strikingly similar segmentation of AI, machine learning, deep learning, generative AI. That's a slide that it's somewhere hidden in here, but we could get to that. But anyway, that's what the inferencing piece is about. And then finally, in the assistance, we're talking about how the analytics buffet comes to you, how it's being served, how is it kind of the Burger King user experience, or are we really talking about a Michelin-starred restaurant where we're trying to make sure that you get an exquisite experience? Okay, with that kind of intro, let's dive into the data. Let's dive into what our data can help us with. So, or what InterSystems can help you with on the data side. So let's first zoom in on getting the data onto the IRIS platform, onboarding the data. So we have, for a long while, supported a combination of connect and collect experiences, connect and collect approaches to making your data accessible. If your data is better kept outside of IRIS, it's going to be managed someplace else. We've got foreign tables as a capability that helps you to project the data right into IRIS without having you to move it or keep it in sync. It just remains where it is, but it's accessible just as if it were an IRIS SQL table. In the collect option, we're talking about efficient loading strategies such as the load data command. An example of a customer that's taking advantage of this is University of Utah Health, with whom I have the pleasure of presenting tomorrow about their data fabric implementation. So they are deploying an enterprise data fabric across their organization to harmonize data that's currently spread across a number of different solutions and make sure that they have kind of a single entry point, a single fabric that their different groups of consumers can tap into. We've worked very closely together with them as an early adopter of the foreign tables capability, and they've inspired not just a couple of bug fixes, but also an entirely new thing that we didn't think of up front, an exploration mode that we think will also be very valuable to other customers. So once data is accessible in IRIS, there's the catch that usually it's not in the shape that you really need it for in analytics. It might be in an operational schema that was very well suited for the types of transactions that you were using in the operational application, but that is not necessarily matching your analytics requirements. So For this, we have a number of options to work with, but the one I wanted to highlight is DBT, the data build tool. Last year, we first introduced at the conference our support for DBT, the DBT IRIS adapter. So what DBT does, it's the T in ELT, the ELT extract load transform. So it's really focused on allowing you to express possibly complicated transformations of large data volumes into another shape by just using SQL. You can express it in very small sized bits and pieces, very simple, small SQL statements, and then DBT will mash them together and kind of apply them in a very efficient way. DBT as a framework helps you apply lots of best practices with respect to code management, with respect to versioning, with respect to all kinds of other logging, documentation. So lots of good stuff, and that helps you implement Medallion type architectures such as this one, where you have a landing zone, a staging area, and then the actual gold data marts, final cubes. Something that I usually get as a question after talking about DBT as the go-to way for data transformations is, well, didn't you have a data transformation language? Absolutely. As part of our interoperability platform, we also have the capability to transform messages, but that is for transforming very complicated data structures in a message paradigm, so one by one. One message arrives, it goes through this whole chain of processing and it gets transformed. What we're talking about here is getting data ready for analytics. You're talking about millions of rows or billions of rows. That's not what you're going to put through a complex data transformation process that treats every row one by one. So they're just solving two different use cases of transformation. An example of a customer that's leveraging DBT is Shift, again, with whom I have the pleasure of presenting a session tomorrow afternoon. So they are building a new product that is a benchmarking product. So when I think about benchmarking, I think about hardcore performance benchmarking. What they're building is a tool to help their customers in the lab information systems, or laboratories are their customers, to benchmark themselves against their colleague laboratories. So to see how the business is performing. And for that, they're kind of picking up data from these customers, bringing it all together, and then doing all kinds of complex aggregations to kind of give them a scoring of how they're doing. And they're using DBT for those transformations. So that's a really exciting example of a customer adopting DBT. Okay, we've got the data in the shape that we want it. Now we need to store it in a way that also is efficient for retrieving that data. This is an area where we've invested a lot, where we've added lots of new capabilities over the last couple of years to make sure that we can support within your applications, within your operational databases, as much as in your data warehouse style environments, that we can support high performance analytics. One of those capabilities is columnar storage. Columnar storage lays out your data in a different way that is super efficient for analytical querying, taking advantage of chipset level optimizations and all kinds of techie cool stuff. But it's there and it works in an amazing flexibility. You can choose at the table level, at the column level, or as an index, how you're going to take advantage of it. Sharding is a capability that we've had for a while, which allows you to distribute your data transparently across multiple machines, and thereby also all of the processing that is associated with querying or ingesting that data. And then this is a roadmap item. Table partitioning is something that we hope to have available in an early access program later this calendar year, that allows you to spread your data based on a logical key, by which I mean based on something that really makes sense to you as a user. Typical example is based on date, so that you can put your most recent data on your super expensive premium disks that give you the I/O and the efficiency that you need for your operational use cases. But then the data from 4 years ago, you can safely put that on spinning disks and save a lot of money in the process. So that's what table partitioning will help you with. example customer is Northwell. For those of you who were at our event in Seattle 2 years ago, you saw them deliver this presentation, which is exactly about their deployment of a customized version of Health Insight that runs across 4 machines and gives them the query performance that they need for their diverse user base. And then the last thing on the data side that I want to talk about is data catalog. So data catalog is an important item in our roadmap. You'll hear Gökhan also talk about that tomorrow when he presents the broader data platforms roadmap. And it's getting more and more important than it ever has been before, because it's not only helpful to be able to navigate your data assets, but if you're not just cataloging the structure of your data, but if you're also looking at how your data assets are being used, how the data is distributed within those assets, and maybe put some organizational lore or some metadata about who's the steward, who's the owner of this, what has it been used for in the past. That really is activating your metadata in a way that enables an entirely new set of use cases, and that allows you to automatically recommend data sets, rank your data sets for usability, such that your data consumers, your data scientists, your data analysts can find the data that they need to implement their needs in the most efficient way possible. So that's the data catalog. So we have a partnership with one of the industry leaders, Collibra, for enterprise data catalog use cases, but we're also working on a data catalog experience that's kind of built into our cloud services and can be taken advantage of if your needs are, let's say, more mundane than the full data governance that Collibra offers. That concludes the first bit, and now I'll be glad to hand over to Carmen.
Literally hand it over, yeah. So what do you guys think of our AI-generated graphics here? Those of you that came in late, we did that to kind of represent this whole buffet concept. By the way, there are a few more seats in the middle if you guys in the back want to sit down. So I'm going to be talking about key performance indicators as we've labeled them, and that's really, as Benjamin said at the beginning, bringing all that great data that you've just shaped and stored and making that visible to the end user. So as we see in the picture here, delivering the food to the table, delivering the food to wherever you happen to be. And I'm going to run through the products that we have and talk about some of the customers that are using those in this area as we talk through this. KPIs, actually, they need a combination, and we should mention maybe on the upper side there, we have the personas that work with each of these areas as well. And when you're delivering these key performance indicators, it's often a combination of kind of the organizational or business leader who's helping figure out what you need to measure, as well as someone who has a pretty deep understanding of the data and where things are. And it's a combination of bringing those two people together. So on a lot of these KPI slides, you'll see both of those personas represented. The first product that I'm going to talk about is InterSystems Reports. And as you can see there, we've got a representation of somebody delivering food to somebody where they sit. And that's because reports are often kind of delivering a finished product to the person that needs that information, right? So that could be on kind of a scheduled basis where you're delivering it regularly. And with InterSystems Reports, we can design pixel-perfect reports that can come in the form of actual forms. So you could have things like government forms. You can have bills, like letters that get sent out in the form of bills, and that sort of use case is a really good fit for InterSystems Reports. InterSystems Reports as a package comes with a designer portion, which is where you do all of your design. So that's probably where the data analyst would be in figuring out how to design that report and deliver it. And it comes with a server component, which also is where somebody comes and they're able to schedule their reports and have those delivered, maybe change the filtering, and they can do that sort of thing as well. And TrackCare, for example, embeds server into their product. in the Tech Exchange, actually later today. If you haven't seen a demonstration of InterSystems reports, that's where we're going to be doing it at 4:30. So come there if you haven't seen InterSystems reports, and we'd be happy to show you that. The customer that I'll talk about is actually, I'm not going to talk a lot about them because they have a session later today as well at 3:30. So I'll just advertise that you should go to their session to learn more about what they're doing with InterSystems reports. Their use case was that they were moving from Crystal reports actually to InterSystems reports. And so I think the key advantage for them, and they'll say a little bit more about this, was really working with InterSystems for a long time. They've been a long-time partner of ours. They happen to already have a license, and many of our licenses do include the ability to deploy InterSystems reports. They had that embedded, so they were able to kind of simplify their overall architecture in terms of the number of vendors they were working with, as well as be able to include that and transition their reports and get those advantages pretty easily. So do come to that session if you want to learn more about what they've done. The second solution that I'll talk about in our sort of overall key performance indicators is InterSystems IRIS BI, and many of you have worked with it, formerly DeepSea. So InterSystems IRIS BI has been part of the platform for a long time, and as you can see, the picture we have representing IRIS BI in this case is somebody who's actually cooking at the table, right? So this is a component that actually gets deployed with IRIS. It lives very close to the data, so for things like near real-time data, it's a good solution for that because it's working very close to the data. You can do lots of synchronization that allows you to stay to near real time. And the other area where IRIS BI is a good fit is when you're delivering an application that needs some of those insights as part of the application. So you want to deliver a solution that includes a set of metrics. You want to include a dashboard, an embedded dashboard, something like that. It's a good solution for that kind of scenario as well, if you're embedding. And one customer that's been a long-time customer of IRIS BI is Update Textware, which is an organization based in Germany. And they actually use IRIS BI to monitor the kind of the factory equipment, the data from those machines on the factory floor that are doing work with textiles. And so lots of information comes in from those machines about how they're operating, and they need information that's pretty up to date so that they can essentially avoid delays, avoid issues in the manufacturing process as well. So for them, that's the real advantage is that ability to keep it relatively close to real-time information and keep it embedded in their applications. And then the third solution that I'll talk about, the third form of KPI, is InterSystems IRIS Adaptive Analytics. And this is something that we introduced within the InterSystems sort of portfolio generally a couple of years ago. And the real thing that this was working to solve for was that there's a lot of your larger organizations will have groups of people across the organization that are using different tools, different strategies, and so the concept is that we create this semantic layer that provides a set of measurements and metrics as well as things that you want to filter by and group by and measure by, so dimensions that you have as a common set of things so that somebody in accounting who's working in Excel will get the same third quarter numbers as somebody in another part of the organization who's working in Tableau. So you create this overall semantic layer that gives you that information. We do have, I should mention that if you are getting direct access, if you want to get direct access into the data, and this is particularly good for operational data stores, we do have access through ODBC and JDBC drivers. But I think the real advantage that we have with adaptive analytics is that semantic layer, as well as some performance improvements that are built into the adaptive analytics platform. So one of the things that adaptive analytics does is it takes, as you're asking the question, like that quarterly question. So let's say I want to get quarterly numbers for something. The first time that query runs, it's going to go out and it's going to actually calculate that based on all the raw numbers. But what happens behind the scenes then is that adaptive analytics will store that information as quarterly information. So when somebody asks for that from Tableau the next time, it's going to go to the quarterly information rather than recalculating that. So those are some of the key advantages that you have with adaptive analytics. And we are going to have a demo of that in the Tech Exchange at 1:30, but the other thing I'll mention is that our partner AtScale, who works with us on adaptive analytics, is in the partner pavilion, so you can also stop by their booth to see a demo of what they do and how they work with us on that solution. And the customer, if you were here at Global Summit last year, Harris Associates actually participated on the main stage and kind of told their story about working with InterSystems IRIS and adaptive analytics. And adaptive analytics is included in our Total View for Asset Management solution, which we announced last year as well. And so they are an asset management firm who has been able to take advantage of adaptive analytics for some of the needs that they have in terms of getting that data directly to their consumers who are using a variety of BI tools, Power BI and Tableau primarily. All right, and then the last area that I'll talk about, and I know Tom is going to talk a little more about integrated ML, but one of the things we've added in the last year is time series modeling to integrated ML. And the cool thing about that is all those tools that I mentioned for KPIs can take advantage of this. It's based on, it uses a date or a time field in order to make predictions about what's going to happen, and then actually stores those as rows so that you can use them in those tools. So if you see the picture on the bottom here where we've got the orange lines continuing, those are predictions. So somebody can take a look at that in a dashboard or a report and decide, hey, that looks like a trend that's going down. Maybe I need to do something in order to prevent it from hitting some sort of threshold. So that's an addition that we've made in the last year that I think really enhances some of our reporting and dashboarding capabilities. So with that, I am now going to turn it over to Tom.
So here's where my pictures start, and it's crazy people. It's like, Benjamin, did you actually put something in the prompt there? So anyways, so inferencing, it's about machine learning. It's about making predictions. It's about using machine learning models, developing them, and also in the age of generative AI, it's leveraging that as well to make predictions. So for data enthusiasts, as you see in the upper right, we do have capabilities with integrated ML that really make it simple to start. So we've taken machine learning using AutoML or automated machine learning and distilled it down to some very simple SQL commands. Create, train, predict. They're just very easy to use. There's also validate. I forgot to put that up there. A very important step. Actually testing your model, testing the accuracy, and deciding whether to train some more. So there's two places where this is great. So first is prototyping. So anybody that's familiar with the data, that knows a bit of SQL, can test out a hypothesis, try it out. We have a longtime customer in the insurance field that's actually been able to they've collected a lot of data over a long period of time, and they've developed a model pretty quickly to predict whether customers are going to re-enroll or not. Very important business thing, and then they can take those learnings about what worked, what didn't as far as their modeling, and then go to the next step, which would be with data scientists, to develop a full-on production model. And that's the other place where integrated ML is really useful. It's because once you have a model that's working that you want to use for production, it's in IRIS, it's managed with the data that you're using, your own critical data, and therefore it all works together. Part of the power of the IRIS platform. If you want to learn some more, we have a couple developers on the project that are at the Tech Exchange. They're going to be talking about some interesting additions we're making. I won't steal their thunder, but oops. So yeah, I won't steal their thunder, but it's really about what we were adding is the ability to customize the AutoML procedure underneath very deeply, so we could tackle more use cases than just simple prediction. That will help a lot for partners and customers. So data scientists, though, the really crazy ones, as you see, they need more than just a prototyping tool. They need to dig into the interpretability, explainability, bias, checking for all those things, and also running the model and monitoring it. And so for that, we have different ways to access it. So of course, InterSystems IRIS is a standard database with connectors that basically any tool can access. Python notebooks are things that data scientists use all the time. But we have an integration with Data Robot, which is a full-featured MLOps and ML tool development user interface. And that really expands, increases the productivity of a data scientist. So if you have some data scientists, they would be very happy using Data Robot, from what I've heard. And we do, however, want to and have designs on providing more of a workbench for this persona. In the age of generative AI and using those models to build applications, which I'll talk a little bit more about, there's definitely an opportunity when you have all of the data together to turn the crank on that and develop really interesting AI applications. And we want to be part of that flow for you. So another kind of digging down or going deeper into the production side. So when you're actually making those applications, you can run models that you develop elsewhere. So that's another bit of flexibility. We have a runtime PMML executor. So if you develop a model in any number of industry standard tools, export it as a PMML object, which is a standard XML-based format, you then can run it in IRIS, and we generate runtime code that's native, makes it run very fast for either batch or real-time use cases. And you can have embedded Python to do whatever you want. Benjamin mentioned scikit-learn, or any of the open source applications that build models, you can access those. And we actually have a customer in the rubber industry in Thailand that has used embedded Python. They've used a lot of open source tools to predict the commodity price of rubber. So there's all sorts of commodity pricing models and prediction models on the market, but not any that were really customized to the rubber industry. So that's exactly a case where if you have a lot of data and you have a specific use case, you can use the flexibility of IRIS to develop an application that really moves the needle for you. And then we have actually a customer that we're working with in Saudi Arabia that has used this kind of approach to put together with embedded Python and IRIS BI and IRIS interoperability a whole solution to predict no-shows. So they have an eye surgery clinic where they had a real problem where nobody was showing up for their appointments. And this is something that happens in healthcare a lot. And you have a fair amount of data to use for this. And so they can predict whether or not someone's going to show up for an appointment based on some data. It's not a perfect model. You can see that there's a fair number of false positives and false negatives in this diagram. But what you can do for each of those boxes, even if they're not perfect ones and zeros, what you can do is you can assign a cost to what is the cost of having a false positive. False positive being you thought they were going to show up and they didn't. Or you can have another cost for if they show up and you predicted they wouldn't be there. And then you can use these accuracy statistics to just determine whether the model is good enough to save you money in the long run. And that is a really interesting application they're running and very happy with. So, of course, now everybody wants to chat with their data. They don't want to necessarily dig in and do a lot of detailed work if they don't have to. And so everybody can use generative AI and these chatbots and this ability to really distill a bunch of data into natural language. And we see this in different patterns, right? So people are making chatbots, like I mentioned. They are just using these models for RAG pipelines, or retrieval augmented generation, which is an architecture pattern that I'll talk about more, not only later today in a session, but tomorrow. And people are developing copilots. So if you have kind of a full workbench, you might expect pretty soon that someone's going to develop a copilot to help you navigate all the data and navigate what you're doing. And so we're working on all of these, and we definitely want to develop gateways so that you can have multiple large language models that you access with your applications, also other foundational components. So we're interested in the kinds of things that you all are doing and to help us shape where we're going with this. So one of the key pieces, and what we've really focused on initially with generative AI, is retrieval augmented generation, vector search. And so really it's a way that you can use these large language models that take natural language, take different unstructured data, and put it into a space where you can easily search and do similarity search. So if you have all of your data in IRIS, you can easily make it searchable. And also, we're developing the Python integration so that it's very easy to build applications within the Python ecosystem, which is really critical because it's so fast moving and there's so many different people doing different things that you want to take advantage of. And they're building this in Python. And so it's very easy if you can access these from Python and also keep your data within IRIS and keep it managed nicely. So that's what we're doing there, and we'll talk more about it. And we have a customer, a partner, that is going to be talking about this actually tonight at Demos and Drinks. BioStrand. So they are kind of a bioinformatics shop. They've been bought by a pharmaceutical kind of development company. And so they're using vector search to organize and manage a bunch of data. So they use large language models that have been trained on biomedical data like scientific articles, but they also use, that's an LLM, they also use PLMs, or protein language models, because you can use that same technique to take in this sequence of proteins, or proteins that make up the proteins, or the amino acids that make up the proteins, and then search over those. So that helps you find common things, common patterns throughout the genome that then relate to the clinical data that you can see within the large databases and all of the scientific literature that's out there. So it's a very, very complex space, and vector search helps them manage it. And this just gives a kind of an idea of what they're doing. So you see there's just like a cloud of points. Each one is a protein. And there's a specific area there in the upper right that they're interested in. They find similar proteins that might be similar in their activity, their bioactivity, take those further for development. So that's a drug discovery use case. It's very interesting. Okay, so for that, I'll pass it to Benjamin.
Right. Thank you, Tom. That's really exciting. So time to wrap up, time to do the dishes. Just to reiterate once more, these trends about intelligent applications, composable analytics, and generative AI, how we're working on those at InterSystems by moving the analytics close to the data, making sure that we have fully standards-based components that you can easily compose into your solutions, and then making sure that all of the key generative AI tasks can be made accessible from IRIS without having your data having to leave the platform. That's sort of our strategy in this analytics market. To give you a quick rundown of all the products that we talked about and the product features, that's a lot of text on there. There's some of those that are roadmap items. So I mentioned data catalog and table partitioning, the LLM gateway and RAG templates that Tom was talking about are also things that we're actively working on now. And then there's also components that actually have specific license terms that apply. That's a different way of saying that they're not necessarily included in the base license that you're using. By the way, all of the slides are available as PDFs through the app which you also can access from your bigger non-mobile device if you need to. Tomorrow, Gökhan is going to present a broader overview of the data platform's roadmap. We wanted to highlight just a couple of things that are specific to analytics. So what have we been up to in the past 6 to 12 months is absolutely vector search. So we'll talk a lot about this tomorrow as well. And we've got demos all around. And as I mentioned, analytics performance with enhancements to columnar storage, especially on ingestion. That's going to be released in the 24.2 release. Parallel execution, IRIS BI, a couple of performance enhancements as well. And then what we're sort of working on very, very hard right now is in generative AI, some further enhancements to vector search and those AI foundational elements to make it easy for you to plug in different LLMs, etc., in your AI workings. And then data onboarding and table partitioning I also mentioned. This, yet another very dense slide, is an overview of all of the other SDC and Tech Exchange sessions that we already mentioned, or most of them we already mentioned. So we can recommend those because they'll be going into much more depth about the individual products that we covered in our Whirlwind tour that just finished. And with that, I kindly invite you to open the app and fill out the survey so that we can make sure that we keep making our sessions better. And if you're interested in joining any of our early access programs, you can do so by scanning the QR code or following the link in the app. If you go to the ellipsis, the hamburger icon, you can also find more details about these. I think we've got about 3 minutes left for questions, so all that racing did really help. So if you wouldn't mind raising your hand so we can get them on the recording, that makes it more convenient for others. Yes, please.
In the beginning, you mentioned organizations not using rip and replace and just doing components. Most of the things that you talked about, it seemed like we have to use the entire stack to make use of it. Like data cataloging and like some of the components that you mentioned, you have to entirely use the components. Will they be compatible with external tools that the organizations already have?
That's an excellent question. I think some of the answers in there were very early in the presentation when we talk about onboarding the data, making sure that from your IRIS-based data fabric, you can easily access data that is stored on different platforms, using foreign tables to just project it from there into IRIS or loading it from there. Some of the other solutions are also capable of reaching out to third-party systems. In the case of adaptive analytics, that's also something where the license restrictions imply that you use it with IRIS. But I think when we're talking more about the things that Tom presented in the inferencing and assistance area, that's where we're really talking about modules that are designed to work with third-party components because they're not part of our stack. We're not going to deliver an LLM as InterSystems. That's not our work. We don't own a lot of healthcare data, so we have nothing to train an LLM on. So that might be something that some of you have the ability to, and we would be happy to assist and share some of our experience with about things that we've done in the area. Thank you. Any other questions?
Is IRIS InterSystem PI natively compatible with at-scale?
Yeah, so we did do some work to convert an IRIS BI cube into an at-scale cube, but they are pretty fundamentally different kinds of products. So they can coexist, certainly, okay. And it is possible to convert an IRIS BI cube into a virtual cube within the at-scale product. However, there are some things that are going to be missing there that we just couldn't convert. There's a number of things that just can't be converted. So I'd be happy to talk to you a little bit more about that, depending on the use case.
Thank you.
Yep.
One more question. Anyway, we're around for the whole conference. There's all these other sessions that go into much more depth, and we'd be happy to help you get oriented within this very broad buffet. Thank you very much, and hope you enjoy the conference.